Hello guys, welcome to the channel. My name is Evans, and in this video I want to show you guys how I set up and balance the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 6K Pro with the Sigma 18 to 35 1.8 lens on the DJI RS2 gimbal. This lens and camera combination is a very popular one. However, it can also be bulky and heavy and poses some challenges when trying to mount this setup on a gimbal. So we'll be going through all the components that I use for my setup, as well as how to put all the components together and put it on the camera, balance it, and then also go through some example test footage that I have shot using this setup. I try to keep all of this as simple and as short as possible. However, you can use the chapter markers to jump to the section that interests you the most. So to assemble the photo focus unit, here are the pieces that I'm using. The photo focus module itself, the mounting rod that comes with that, and this attachment piece. I'm going to use this piece and I'm going to slide this in. When you do this, make sure that the rod does not extend too much out, and also make sure that this top here with the screw is pointing upwards, and just try to make this as flush as possible. You don't want this extending too much, because if you do, it may get in the way of locking the quick release plate in place. So bring it out and try to make it as flush as possible and tighten this up. I'm using this tool from Smallrig because it's convenient and it's easy to use as well and very portable. I will leave a link to this in the description as well in case you want to get that. So I'm going to use this tool to tighten this up. Okay, so we're keeping it flush, just like that. So normally once you have this piece, you would attach it to the quick release plate, the small quick release plate, like that. However, for this setup, because the lens is a little bit longer and the focus ring of the lens is way in the front of the lens, attaching this to this piece will not work for this camera and lens combination. So what I'm going to do instead is to attach this to the manfrotto portion of the quick release plate. So take that piece and bring it up and install it right here at the front of the piece. Now what I'm doing is I'm not using the first hole down here. I'm using the two holes right here and there, and I'm attaching that straight to the front of the manfrotto piece of the quick release plate. This way the rod extends long enough to be able to reach the focus gear on the lens. So go ahead and tighten that. Make sure it's tight. Do not over tighten, and you have something like this. So with this, the focus module, it's going to go on it. And the way I want to mount my focus module is, instead of mounting it the regular way, which is this way, right, and have the module come out, I want to mount it the opposite way, which is I want to mount it so that the gear is at the bottom when I mount it on the lens. The last piece for this assembly is the lens strap. DJI recommends using the lens strap when you are using the focus module. That's because sometimes when you're trying to pull focus, you can feel the lens shifting and moving. That can cause some imbalances and some jitters. So I recommend whenever you're going to use the focus module to make sure you put on the lens strap, so it gives you some sort of stability as you go through and pull focus with this unit. So I'm going to install this right on the front, attaching it to the piece that we just installed on the manfrotto plate. And I'm going to put that right here. This is going to go through and go into the hole in the middle right here. Right, so for now, I'm not going to tighten it too much, just leave it in place. And we're done with assembling the photo focus unit on the quick release plate. So I'm going to put this aside and we'll work on the camera next. So now here's my Pocket Cinema Camera 6K, and there's two pieces that I want to attach to this. The first piece is going to be this SSD holder from Smallrig. And the reason why I want to use this, because I prefer to shoot externally to the SSD drive instead of to the cards internally. That's because for me, it provides a better value to buy the SSDs than the cards, and also makes my workflow a little bit more easy, as I can take that SSD and start editing directly on it on my computer. So I'm going to mount this piece, and the way I'm mounting this piece is using one screw. So I'm just using one screw here, and I'm mounting it such a way that the cable piece, or where the cable is coming from, will be facing towards the lens, right? And I will mount it with the screw all the way shifted to my left. And I'm going to tighten this in place as well. There we go. So I have this shifted all the way to my left. And that's because what I've noticed is that the camera seems to be very heavy on this side. So putting a little bit of more extra weight on that side will help to balance things out. The last piece that I want to install on the camera itself, it's this quick release plate. For this, the way I mount it is to have the screw on one of the end sides of the holes, because if I put it in the center, there may not be enough space to shift the camera to the right on the gimbal. But putting it right here allows me to kind of gives the camera a little bit of a push to the left hand side when I mount it on the camera. Right, so put it on one of the last ends. It doesn't matter, as this can be mounted either this way or that way. So make sure you don't use the center one, just use the ones on the sides. So I'll mount it at the bottom of the camera using the second 1/4-20 screw here, or the first from the lens. And I'm going to mount it in this way. I'm going to mount it so that the two empty holes are facing towards the bottom where the pots are. And I'm going to tighten this in. Make sure it's straight. Tighten it with your hands till it's straight. And use your tool or a screwdriver to make sure it's tight and does not move around. So now that I have the assembly almost done, I'm going to install the SSD drive and the USB cable for that. And I'm going to tighten that up. This locks the USB in place so the cable is not moving, and this locks the SSD in place. And the next thing I'm going to do is take my USB cable. I'm going to wrap it and use these things to lock it in place at the top here. Give it a little bit more of a stability. Run this cable all the way to the other side here and plug it in. The other thing I like to do is also to take this Velcro strap that I have here and use the camera's strap holder right up here, and I'm going to thread this through. And what this does is to give me a little bit more stability with the cable, so the cable is not moving all around. So now that I have all of this assembled, the next thing is to put all of this on the gimbal and balance it out. So let's do that next. Okay, so now I'm going to mount the quick release plate first that we just assembled, and I'm going to slide that right in here, and then use this button here to move it all the way to the back, like somewhere about here. And I'm now going to take the camera and I'm going to slide it in. You're going to hear the click when it's in. Shift it to the right as much as you can without touching the motor here. So somewhere around here, I think it's good for me. And I'm going to lock this in place. And this is what I was talking about. If you had this rail come out too much, then when it comes to locking this in place, you have the chance of this interfering with that locking mechanism. Okay, so now that we have this set up and we have it on here, the goal is to now start balancing it. But before we balance it, I want to run the cable for the follow focus model, and that cable is just going to come into the second USB port right here, right, and then I will just run it straight up to the follow focus model. But let's now position this follow focus model. We're going to position it right here at the bottom here till it touches the gear. And by the way, I'm not using the gear ring that comes with the RS2 because I'm using this piece that I got from B&H. This, I believe, is made by Tilta, and it's a seamless follow focus gear. So I put one of these on every non-cine lens that I use, just because it's convenient and it's easy, and I don't need to worry about putting that follow focus gear on all my lenses and moving it from lens to lens, because this is seamless and it's complete circle, so there is no bumps along the way. So for the lens strap, I want to bring this lens strap all the way up as much as possible, right? And once it's all the way up, I'm going to tighten this knob here to secure it in place like that. And I'm going to take the strap, wrap it around the follow focus rod, bring it all the way up and around, and then push it through and strap this, you know, give it a little bit of tension, not too much, but just enough tension to be able to hold your gear in place, right? And then just like that. So it adds a little bit of strength to it, and that prevents the lens from bouncing up and down when you're trying to use the follow focus gear. All right, so now let's plug this in to the focus model right here, and we have all the cables set up. So it's now time to balance this gimbal out. And to balance, I'm going to start off with the tilt model, and what I'm going to do is unlock the tilt model and point this camera up. If it's coming backwards, you're going to move it forward, make small adjustments till the lens is able to point up on its own without leaning backwards or forward. So somewhere right about here seems to be good. The lens is on its own, pointing up, and tighten this back up. Right, the next thing for you to do is to go this way, and as you can see, it's backwards heavy, right? So I'm going to use this knob, release this here, and then use this knob right here to move this forward and backwards, depending on which direction you want to move it. So I'm going to keep moving this backwards and forward until it will stay on its own, somewhere about right there, and I'll lock this in place. So with this, I think it needs a little bit of adjustment. And we're good, right? So you can leave it here, it will stay, leave it there, it will stay, that kind of thing. So lock this, and we're gonna balance the row model. So the row model is next. To balance the row model, unlock it right here. Right, and as you can see, it's leaning towards the side, so I'm going to push it the opposite way and push. Just the goal is to make small adjustments. Don't make big adjustments at a time. Small adjustments so you get it perfectly well. Just a little bit. Just a little bit more. Okay, so small adjustments either direction so you can get this perfectly balanced. And then if you look at it, it stays. If you go that way, it stays, and you're good to go, right? So that's balanced. I'm going to lock that in place. So the next thing is to balance the pan model, and for the pan model I'm going to unlock this right here, right? And how I balance the pan model is to hold it like this, and see it's tilting up, which means that I need to make some adjustments. So I'm going to move it up a little bit and see which way it tilts, right? So I gotta make small adjustments to this, tiny incremental adjustments. Don't make big moves at a time. So this still needs to go back just a little bit. Let's see where we are. Oh, now it needs to go forward a tiny bit more, a little bit more forward. And somewhere right about here, this is balanced, right? You can see it's staying in place, and that's a good balance right there. So I'm going to lock that as well. And I'm going to go back and just check all of these axes to make sure they're properly balanced. All right. I've got to make a small adjustment here because I feel it's a little bit front heavy. So they're about there, that's good. I'm going to test out the roll model again. Still seems good, and we're good. So now I'm going to unlock all these axes, turn on the gimbal, and once the gimbal is on, the first thing I'm going to do is to do calibration. Done. You could also go ahead and do a balance test, but now that we have all of this done and set up and properly balanced, you can see the setup. You can see how easy it was to set this up and balance. And I'm going to take this out and shoot some sample footage. So stay around, take a look at some of these sample footage that I shot. Everything was shot at 24 frames per second, so you can actually see how this gimbal and this combination performs. So enjoy the sample footage, like this video. If it has been helpful for you, leave a comment in the description. If you have any questions, leave them below and I'll try to get to you as fast as I can. As usual, stay blessed, keep creating, and I'll see you in the next video.